Morning with developments in the race for the White House. Could there be soon another candidate entering the race?
President Joe Biden and former President Donald Trump will face off in the November general election. Both men secured the required delegates to be their respective party's nominee. It will become official this summer when a vote is held during the Republican and Democratic national conventions. Meanwhile, a third-party political group called No Labels has created a vetting committee to consider presidential candidates. That announcement came after the organization's co-chair and former North Carolina Governor Pat McCrory stepped down. He told NBC News, "I gave it my all for over a year as volunteer co-chair, but now it's time to move on. I wish the best for the No Labels movement." Former Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings is the National Convention chair for No Labels, and he joins us this morning. It's so nice to see you.
It's great to be here. Great to be with you again, Grover.
I want to start with Governor McCrory's decision. Did it surprise you, and does it indicate any kind of an issue within the No Labels organization?
No. Pat was a great supporter of this. He just got to a point where he needed to do something else. This is tough. This is hard to do at this point, and I wish him the best, and I think he wishes us the best.
So, Mayor, what's your role in this process?
Yeah.
And start with that, and then what are you hoping to accomplish in terms of a candidate? Is there anyone on the horizon?
Yeah. I think I need to give a little personal background on this.
Sure.
Okay, being mayor, I realized that the effective leaders are uniters, not dividers. And then I found out how everybody was so upset about this system. And, you got 20% on one end and 20% on the other end and everybody else in the middle. And so I decided to kind of get involved slowly in the last couple of years. But I became the chair, and I was able to talk to all of our delegates. We have over 800 delegates, 50 states, to make a decision on what we want to do. And I talked to each of them individually. And they helped me frame and helped No Labels frame who we're looking for. And so that was exciting. That's what I've been doing. If we've decided that we're going to create a country over party committee, a group of citizen leaders that are talking to people, are selecting people, and they're going to bring it back to the delegates. If the delegates say thumbs up, a majority of them approve that, then we'll take it to the public and put it on the ballot.
Okay.
It's already mid-March. Is there urgency here? I mean, the train has left the station in terms of a campaign.
Well, train has left the station for the other parties.
Right.
Look, most of the time we've known the way it used to be. It wasn't until the summer that you made these determinations. We saw this coming a year and a half ago, and that's why we put this insurance policy in place. That's why I got involved, because I didn't want Trump to win again. And so we've got time. We're not going to do this next week. Probably not the next week. It's going to be sometime in April. Before spring ends, we'll have a decision to have a candidate in a unity ticket with a Republican at the top, a Democrat at the bottom probably, and we'll take it back to those delegates and get that permission.
Do you still consider yourself a Democrat?
Oh, no question. I'll be supporting Colin Allred. He's a uniter. I really believed in that, and I think that. But, it's not about me. It's about the public. The public is saying no, thank you to this
What
stuff.
do you think about concerns that Democrats have that this effort may be handing the election to Donald Trump?
Yeah. Look, all I can say is these are some of my friends, okay? And I've been saying for some time, Trump's coming, whether we like it or not. This thing's coming down the track. It's not our responsibility to say, don't do that, don't do this. They made their own decision. And the voters spoke, the primaries, which are crazy, these primaries. And it's our job to come up with a new solution. How do we take a movement and create a new way to think about government? And how do we unite this country versus divide it? And that's what I care about.
This is not a new idea to have a third-party candidate, but a third-party candidate has never won. I think
Right.
Ross Perot maybe got closest. Why do you really believe that this time might be different?
Well, first of all, this isn't just about a third-party candidate. This is about the center of the United States and how they feel. Usually it's personality-driven. This is about people being dissatisfied that the duopoly is broken. And so that's why we see so momentum. Look, we believe it could work because we've done extensive research 3 times all the way down to each and every state. I know where Texas stands on this and what's going to happen with Texas. And believe it or not, it's not a no-brainer that Trump wins Texas if the right person came in place. And so I think there's a shot, but it's got to be around the right ticket, and we've got to make sure we send out the right message. If we don't have that, we'll keep the movement going. This movement's going to be here. Things are going to change in this country.
So how do you feel about President Joe Biden?
Yeah.
Why not just support him over Donald Trump and leave it at that?
Look, as you know, I was the first big city mayor in the United States to endorse Joe Biden because I believed he could beat Trump, and he did, okay? But it's not about me now. I look at what the polls show, and it's true. They want something different, and that he does not have that support now. I think he's done some good jobs, especially internationally. I mean, him standing up to Russia, him standing up for Israel, those sort of things are so critical in our country. So I'm still a big fan. I'm sorry he's not going to win this time, and I'm scared about what's the alternative.
Right. Come back and talk to us in a month or so.
I'll do it.
Right.
It's exciting. It's important.
You look refreshed now that you're not in the mayor's seat. Let me just point that out.
You know what? I love Dallas, and it's doing me good. It really is.
Former Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings, thanks so much for your time. It's great to see you.
Thanks a lot, Brian.
Next week, Robert F. Kennedy Jr., who is also running for the White House, is expected to announce his running mate during a campaign event in Oakland, California. Kennedy switched to be an independent after his campaign as a Democrat failed to build support from the party's base. NBC News has confirmed his short list for vice president includes New York Jets quarterback Aaron Rodgers and former Minnesota governor and pro wrestler Jesse Ventura. Still ahead, a crucial deadline for a new controversial Texas immigration law, where SB 4 stands, and what it could mean for all Texans. We'll talk with immigration attorney Eric Cedillo. But first,
I have 3 terms in the Texas House. I have a lot of experience learning how to do this job, both offensive and defensive.
the state representative fighting for a seat in Washington, D.C., Julie Johnson, joins us to talk about her run for Congress and why she says she deserves your vote. You're watching Lone Star Politics. As we head toward the November general election, one race that is already getting a lot of attention is Congressional District 32. That is the Dallas seat vacated by Congressman Colin Allred when he decided to run for the U.S. Senate. In this month's primary, Democratic State Representative Julie Johnson of Farmers Branch narrowly avoided a runoff, so she will be on the ballot. Johnson will face the winner of a Republican runoff between former Dallas City Council member David Blewett and former Arlington City Council member Darrell Day. And State Representative Julie Johnson joins us this morning. Thanks so much for being here.
Good morning. My pleasure.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
You narrowly avoided a runoff. It was a really crowded race.
Right.
Some pundits were surprised. Were you?
I wasn't surprised. You know, we worked really, really hard, and we just felt it on the ground. You know, we knocked tens of thousands of doors. We had an army of volunteers. We canvassed, we called, we texted, we mailed. We did everything that campaigns are supposed to do, and just had so much support. It was really hard work, though, and we left no stone unturned because I was determined to win this outright and not have a runoff.
That is the smile of a person that doesn't have to go through a runoff and can get ready for the general election. And let me point out, this is a district now that's pretty safe for Democrats. So,
right.
But you know, you have to run through the tape. But it is tough to beat 10 people in a primary without the aid of a runoff. So what were there any issues? What made the difference? You talked about experience a lot on the trail.
Well, yes, my experience clearly resonated and was significant to the voters. You know, people are scared. There's a lot of issues out there that people are very worried about. And, you know, I'm the only one that had any experience in addressing these issues, that knew how to be a legislator, that knew how to work the process, knew how to work in a bipartisan way, how to work with Republicans, how to actually pass things. And so there's that. And then I think women in particular really rose to the occasion. Women drove the turnout, older women, exponentially the largest voting bloc. And I think it's due to the fact that, A, they're very frustrated about the loss of control over their bodies, their family. They want Roe codified. They want abortion protections put back in place. But they also saw in me a very qualified woman being challenged by predominantly men that she shouldn't have her spot. And they saw themselves in that. And a lot of people told me that at the doors. Like, yeah, you're clearly the only one that has any legislative experience. And there's a bunch of men telling the most qualified woman to stay in her seat and not advance. And they saw themselves in that, and they came out and voted.
You mentioned reproductive rights. If you are elected, what will be your priorities in Washington?
Well, absolutely addressing abortion access in Texas. It's fundamental. You know, all the reports that we've seen lately with 26,000 rape-related pregnancies that came out not too long ago, and all these statistics. You know, my niece had an ectopic pregnancy that ruptured about a couple months ago, and she lost half of her blood volume. And at the hospital that day, they told her that was their 38th pregnancy-related emergency just that day. So, I mean, this is an epic crisis for families in Texas, and it's something that we have to address.
How do you break through the gridlock in Washington? Congress is not an easy body in which to work.
Well, it's not any easier than the Texas legislature. I mean,
good point.
It's, you know, it's full of Democrats and it's full of Republicans, but it's also full of people. And you have to invest the time to build relationships, to build trust, to understand areas that you can work together on common ground, and then you use that as a building block to address other things. So I intend to use that experience, and I've done that in the Texas legislature, passed quite a bit of things, and bring that to the Congress.
If you are elected, you will make a little bit of history. You'll be the first openly LGBTQ member of Congress elected from any southern state, the first woman to hold this seat. Does that weigh on you? Are you conscious of those things?
Well, it's just such an honor to be there, right? And to fight. But it's about time that women have more places. You know, there's 38 members of Congress from Texas. 30 are men and only 8 are women. And with Kay Granger retiring, it was really important that I claimed this seat. And we need more women at the table, I believe. You know, women are awesome. We get a lot done. We're smart. We're talented. We multitask. We can problem solve, negotiate disputes with all the things that we're used to doing. And so, yes. And then on the LGBTQ issue, you know, Texas leads the nation in legislative attacks on the LGBT community. Genesis here in this state. Having been in the state legislature, I've seen up close and personal just how important it is to pass the Equality Act so that our community can have dignity and respect and equality. That's all everybody wants, is a fair shot and be treated equally.
State Representative Julie Johnson, candidate in Texas 32. Thanks so much for your time. We appreciate it.
And come see us when you take office and let us know how things are going.
Anytime. Thank you so much for having me. I appreciate the opportunity.
All right.
As we wait for a Supreme Court decision on the new Texas immigration law, there is word of a protest in the streets against SB 4. That is next on Lone Star Politics. We'll be right back.
We were here before these borders. We were here before these laws. And we will be here after.
1 week from today, the Coalition for Immigrant Rights plans to hold a mega march to protest the state's controversial new immigration law. SB 4 gives local and state police the power to arrest migrants suspected of illegally entering the country from Mexico. The march will take place at Dallas Civic Garden Park in downtown Dallas.
The announcement was made Friday ahead of a temporary block on SB 4 that is set to end tomorrow.
Last week, the U.S. Supreme Court extended the deadline to give justices more time to make a ruling on SB 4. Phil Prazen talked with experts who say as the battle continues in the courts, police are already training to use the law with caution.
Senate Bill 4 is a law against crossing the border illegally, not just for being in Texas without legal status. And that's a key difference, which led to an overturning of an Arizona law a decade ago. Police then will likely have to see or have direct knowledge that someone recently crossed.
The officer has to rely on observable, components or perhaps information that the officer may believe leads that officer to conclude on the spot in the field.
Alex Del Carmen trains police departments and state troopers on racial profiling laws. He tells me police will likely be very cautious when enforcing this law. The stakes are high if they get it wrong. It could be a public relations disaster, they could get sued, or they could violate the law themselves if they profile.
In fact, police departments are not going to engage in the purposeful selection of individuals that would in essence violate federal and state law.
Phil Prazen, NBC5.
For more insight on this, let's bring in immigration attorney Eric Cedillo. Thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
So why do you think the justices need more time on this?
Well, it's a big deal. Certainly more time for them to consider the actual constitutionality of what's going on. Of course, as we know, in 2012, they had the same argument from the Arizona law, 1070, SB 1070. In that, it was a 5-3 vote, relatively close. You had two justices on the Supreme Court at the time that were in the dissent, of course, Alito and Clarence Thomas. So you've got two that are probably going to side with the state of Texas this go-around. And then you've got three new ones. You've got Gorsuch, you got Kavanaugh, and you've got Barrett. And those are the individuals that we're not sure which way they're going to go with it. So I'm sure they're getting together. They're talking about the constitutionality of it and looking at the letter of the law and its application.
You just mentioned the kind of new dynamic on the Supreme Court, and you're not sure. What are you preparing for, though? Any guesses on how?
Well, quite honestly,
history.
There was no way I saw Roe v. Wade being overturned,
right.
And of course we saw that. So the stark reality is it's an incredible unknown. Chief Justice Roberts is one who sided in the affirmative in terms of overturning the Arizona law. So it's a situation where we probably know where he's going to stay in terms of past precedent. But these three new folks, you just don't know what they're going to do. And of course, they, along with Alito and Clarence Thomas, comprise 5, and that would be a 5-4 vote in the Supreme Court supporting, the Texas SB 4 law.
In legal terms, how high are the stakes here? I mean, if this goes into effect, how much of a shift is that?
Well, just hearing what the sheriffs and others have said, I can appreciate what the sentiment is, but the actual letter of the law does not make these distinctions. The application itself could be really problematic for people of color, specifically Latinos. It doesn't say anything about having to witness or see them crossing the border. That's a very easy visual to see. If you have local law enforcement on the scene seeing someone cross over from Mexico, that's one thing. It doesn't deny them the opportunity to say, for downtown Dallas, for example, asking a group of construction workers, how they crossed over. That very real possibility exists, and it exists throughout the state of Texas. So the actual implementation, which is not necessarily being considered by the Supreme Court currently, its application can be an incredible concern for many people, especially within the Latino community.
Is the law necessary, in your view?
Well, quite honestly, no. Again, what they're saying in terms of the application of it, you're not going to see, even if it is implemented, I don't think they have the resources, they have the ability to truly conduct what they want done. I think it's more political in nature in terms of what it provides Governor Abbott and those folks who would support it. So it's a situation where it isn't necessarily doable, but quite honestly, if it is pushing our federal government to take steps and actions necessary, Congress needs to get together on comprehensive immigration reform. They need to be dealing with what's happening with folks kind of coming over. There are surges. We do have a number of individuals coming over, and we are allowing perhaps some people in that shouldn't be here. So that does need to be taken into consideration, but it needs to happen by Congress.
So you would like to see the state out of the border control immigration business because it's a federal. Okay.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because, you mentioned politics here. I think people of all political stripes agree that we do have a problem. Do you agree with that?
I would agree with that. You know, we've got a number of individuals. Of course, Governor Abbott under Lone Star is shipping folks off to New York and other cities, and those places are not ready to take on these immigrants. It's a situation for them as well. They're being put in a situation where, you know, they may not have family, they may not have friends, they don't have the resources to take care of themselves and do what they need to have done. We need more federal monies guiding and supporting those border states and towns, and then following the immigrants about where, you know, where they go, where they end up.
Immigration attorney Eric Cedillo, thank you so much
Absolutely.
for your insight on this. We appreciate you helping us understand this. That's all the time we have. Stay tuned for Meet the Press with Kristen Welker.
And we'll see you back here next Sunday for more Lone Star Politics.